8 o'clock or whatever. Please let the people in.
Of course.
Eventually, more and more will be joining.
3 seconds for everyone to join. Yeah, I think now everybody who was in the waiting room has now joined our meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I will slowly start. Yeah, most of you know me. I at one point I was basically fully committed to daily chartering operation in Varamar, and doing all kinds of shipments of heavy and oversized cargo myself. So I'm not new to your business. Please feel free to ask me any practical questions you like. And I will try to show you, let's say, a little bit of the basics, so that you understand, and you will. I think that the main takeout of this is how that you will understand why AI is not just a fancy word, right? And it's very easy to, how I think I will try to present it easy to understand. And another takeout will be how it can be used today and how it will be used in the future. So, and again, I'm a practitioner myself, so I wouldn't be doing this just for sake of, fundraising. It's really changing the way my company, the Varamar, is run today. And I think actually, I can share with you openly all the use cases we use, and there is actually much more coming in the future. But so, because I'm, talking to you here more as a CEO of ShipNext, of course, all of you can also use it. I think the difficult part for all of you and also me on this call is that the bigger the company, the more budget that they have for investing in AI. And this is happening all over the landscape, in all industries. Of course, the smaller the company, the more challenging it is. So we in ShipNext, we try to bring it to everyone. But the way you guys or any of your companies are absorbing this technology will, eventually lay the ground for your, let's say, future, how scalable your company is, and how much you can grow. In fact, yeah. So before we speak about this, we all know how they usually say, okay, it's, humans are more professional in project transportation. On the other hand, we all know that humans make mistakes, right? So you kind of understand where all these 4 pictures lead you to. These are all basically miscalculations. And in project cargo transportation, it's more about numbers, calculations. There are multiple use cases in all spheres of heavy and oversized cargo transportation, and all of the human errors are basically, in most of the cases, just miscalculations, things that people sometimes don't know how to calculate, things that they have not checked, less so about the technical condition, for example, of wheels or of rubber tires, but more about really the, just a human error as such. So, but where I started this pattern towards, let's say, transition to AI, is that in 2016, I noticed that the more managers I hire, the more chartering managers, in particular sales managers, the more emails they receive, and therefore the more information they need to deal with, and that keeps sales managers in the office, which is not as productive as what one could really hope for in an organization. Because from the moment everyone shifted from telex and fax onto email, this whole space and transportation and international trade has actually become bigger. More countries to trade, more companies to find, more commodities to ship internationally, and therefore there were more emails. And what are emails? Emails are unstructured data, you know, so you as a human being, you have to not only, you know, open an email, but you have to read it, you have to analyze it, comprehend it, extract some useful things, sometimes go back to that email multiple times before you do something next in your workflow. And even at that step, just reading and understanding emails, a lot of mistakes are sometimes made, or things that you need to find before you take a decision. You know that because you read emails from your customers and they ask you for something, and then you say, okay, my God, you know, that port, what did I know about it? Is it still up to date, or is it different now? Is there a draft restrictions? Is there a heavy lift crane there in that port? Is there a terminal here and there? And all that data you have to eventually collect. But before we understand how your, let's say, your or any intellect or any artificial intelligence kind of goes from an algorithm to an artificial intelligence, these are some of the basic things that I wanted to like here clarify. So learning and deep learning, right? So learning is a process where you start to understand the patterns, the behaviors, the skills, and the preferences, right? And then the ability to learn is, and this is actually these two lines are from a dictionary, right? This is the learning and deep learning. Today, it's the ability to learn and possess the ability to learn is possessed from humans, animals, and already some machines. So learning process is equally available in all of the live beings, humans, animals, but also in machines, which is already a fact. So that said, there is intellect, right? So intellect is basically built on the intellect is a kind of based on facts and logical calculations, rational functions of the human mind, and usually it's limited to facts and knowledge. So that means that if you're intellectually advanced, you know some facts and you know some things, and you know the trial and error that can come out of that in order to build your intelligence. And then we all know GPT models. It has not so much connection to ChatGPT that we all hear of, but it's more to do with the algorithm and data that is later advancing into the stage of machine learning. So a machine learning something, and then later into a GPT model. So general purpose language models that can perform a broad range of tasks, from creating original content to writing a code, summarizing text, and extracting data from documents. And this is quite fascinating. So many companies today use GPT models, not only ChatGPT, but there are more and more of them. The difference between using a GPT model and using some, or for example, a general GPT model that we all see on ChatGPT, which is fascinating, and you know, if you haven't tried, you should. And to a GPT model, for example, in shipping and transportation, is that the language is also different. So if you go to medicine, to shipping and transport, where you have a lot of shorts, a standard GPT model cannot understand all of the words, the terminology, the shorts, if you know what I mean by shorts in shipping and transport, that a usual standard GPT model would. So, but to understand how that works, I would you know, show you this slide where I would compare human intelligence versus AI, right? So again, for all of those that joined late, we are talking really practical things, nothing science fictional. You have to understand this in order, these two slides, this one and the next, in order to understand why AI is a reality and where it's different from algorithms, because an algorithm and AI are not the same thing. And today, unfortunately, many of the things that you hear people say are artificial intelligence are actually not. So to understand how the learning process works, because human intelligence and artificial intelligence are at the end going through the process of learning, right? So we know there's a kid going to a kindergarten, and that's supervised learning, right? So school is a supervised learning process. So you go to school, you read books, somebody tells you this is right, this is wrong, this is a table, that's a tree, whatever tree type it is, and so that's a supervised learning process. Actually, all the algorithms are stuck at or majority of the algorithms are stuck at that level. So you have a bunch of databases, you can connect them, you can create a formula that says, okay, pull something out of this database, compare it with that, and come out with a result. That's not AI. And this is where a lot of products are stuck. It's very easy, you know, if a certain action happens, then there should be a reaction, and this is quite basic. The next step is unsupervised learning. So that's that's a process where you go from being in a university, because university is also a supervised learning, to a practical work in an enterprise, because that's where you go and start touching, seeing objects, taking decisions, and learning your own experience. And that's unsupervised learning. And actually, when you probably heard 2 or 3 months ago, there was a scandal in OpenAI, the builders of ChatGPT, where the founding father of, let's say, he's a young guy still, but he's a founding father of AI, Ilya Sutskever. Well, he's American, but with Russian background. He was responsible. He was a CTO, so the main kind of brain behind ChatGPT. But he quit. So there was he first protested to go further into this process, and he wanted the CEO to stop or halt any further development, because he was very concerned of the safety of all of this. And then at the end, after that scandal, the CEO stayed and he left to another company. Now he's building his own. That's when he discovered that in practical sense, at some point with this, first the supervised learning and then machine learning, which is the next step after supervised learning, there is also a process of unsupervised learning. And that means that the computer can start making decisions and taking action to as much as a computer can by itself. And that's what, you know, in America they found quite scary and unpredictable. And this is what finally we know as a fact as from this year. And this pattern to where we are today took many years. So they first spoke about AI in the mid 20th century, and already the last couple of years it just escalated enormously, and finally this year we know that there is unsupervised learning. And so when you go into that kind of data analysis, the problem between the difference between the human brain, the HI, the human intelligence, and artificial intelligence is that if you imagine them sitting together in one room, the more data a human being has to calculate, the lower is the efficiency. So there will be enormously slow speed and very low efficiency, because he can only keep about 7 to 10 things in the brain at the same time. And if he has to solve a very complicated task and very fast and analyze real-time data, because it's all about real-time data as well, it's just going to be impossible. So that's where AI is eventually practical, because the more data an AI has to handle, the more accurate it is. So imagine, for example, taking a decision on cargo. You know, in your brain, you can quickly calculate or maybe remember what the draft restriction, maybe the dimensions of the hold or the speed and consumption are, or, you know, whatever, maybe the route you have to take, maybe some regulations. You don't know if they're still actual, if they're up to date. You don't know the weather, you don't know many things, and that's what finally a algorithmically driven computer model, a computational model, AI eventually can calculate enormously faster and more accurate. So some practical examples of making calculations, right? So I told you, and again, there are people that joined late. Maybe some of them don't know. You can ask me, or, you know, come to any practical questions, because I know what you guys do. I'm still quite active in transforming this heavy and oversized cargo transportation work, and so these are the most of the things are very known to me, so I'll try to be as practical as possible. So this is a usual pattern of decisions or cargo data, or sorry, data collection that you go through, right? So road transportation, before carrying something by road, you first collect and study cargo data, size, weight, packing, lashing. That, you know, in this case takes maybe minutes, hours. In this case takes a fraction of a second. Then you search and collect route data. Again, here, maybe, you know, you think that the person knows it better. In some way, yes, but you know, the fact that it has to be rechecked before the actual transportation is done, if you're talking about heavy and oversized cargo, is also important. So you may know the restrictions, but the condition of the road changes, you know, the dimensions, also the traffic, the repair works that may be taking place on road. In some cases, already here we start to notice that the available real-time data is more important. Usually you see that on Google Maps, but again, this is nothing to do at the moment with AI. It's just comparing the access to data of a usual human being or even experienced project manager versus the algorithm taking a decision. Search and study transportation units, right? So vehicles, available trucks, you know, all that. In case of road transportation, maybe there are even platforms like Transporion that shows you the whole landscape of all the available trucks. In some cases, somebody just knows another company that does it. Already there, the more data, the more better, because you know which trucks are available, which trucks are in position, which are suitable or not. Here, in the case of a human being, much slower, just because of the lack of real-time visibility and you know, access to data. Then you have to know the lifting, right? The equipment ready here, of course. So the usual bottleneck for heavy and oversized cargo transportation is actually the transshipment of cargo. Port to ship, ship to port, port to truck, and then from truck to the discharging site. These are the 4 bottlenecks. So any lifting, anything to do with lashing and lifting is more of a manual work still, and I think that will remain. One of the reasons why we and all your jobs and let's say all your people or all your engineers will still be required is because the AI is still not attached to a human body, right? Or any robot that can literally go and have eyes, sensors to look and hear and smell and touch. So you know, that would probably be the next transitional period. But before then, and I don't expect this to be anywhere in the next 5 years, you know, there should be no threat to any work in fact in break bulk or heavy oversized cargo transportation. Less so for containers, of course. Then the experience, right? So the experience still sometimes remains in people's head. In larger companies, probably they have already ways of collecting that data, storing that data, what went wrong, what was the, you know, there are sensors that collect information on the road condition. And there are plenty of these. For example, your phone collects the condition of each road you drive on. There are various apps for that, the vibration, the speed, the cars that collect, electric cars that collect information about road size, shape, width, height. So all of that information is collected at a much faster speed than you think. So if you think that today going and making a road survey is very complicated as it was before, no, it's wrong. There are companies where this information is already collected and available. So for them to add that data to the GPT model, ChatGPT, for example, and allow ChatGPT to suggest you the best route, considering the condition of the road, the size of the road, from to Bari, for example, is a question of less than a second. So imagine a human being finding the best route from Antwerp to Bari. He will need to almost sit in a car and drive the whole distance and measure and see. But today with electric cars and your telephone laying in your car, all this data is already available anyway. And so you know, for a GPT model, this would be a question of less than a second. For a human being, it's still days of collecting data. And then finally, what I think is a bottleneck still is the use of historic data and real-time meteorological data. Although, you know, and here in the human being find a way to solve bottlenecks and obvious restrictions. So really the look and feel into the situation, the possibility to touch something, to see on the spot, in any, you know, circumstance is still something that a human being can do. Computer can't, or let's say there is no robot that can replace here a person. And here, one of the advantages is that a computer can really have access to meteorological data, which a human being does not have in real time. So that said, you know, here are the main differentials between these two. And of course, an AI cannot delegate. So an AI can suggest. So you can go on ChatGPT after this call. It's, as I said already earlier today, it's just one of the use cases. There are other similar platforms, but any one of them is learning. It gets more and more access to all sorts of data, and you can communicate with them, ask them for example, even today, for a best way to ship cargo from Antwerp to Mumbai, and it will suggest ways of doing that. The only way, the only thing it still tells you is that it doesn't have access to shipping and transportational data. And this is why, for example, in ShipNext, we don't deal with ChatGPT. We find it a threat to our model. So we work with a GPT model of a different provider. I can talk about this later if you have questions. Yeah, so advantages of a GPT or an AI structure is that it's faster. Of course, it has a much broader and faster search of you know, everything from cargo to details, and then transportation units. And then finally, it has real-time access to all of this data, real-time access to route planning, real-time access to meteorological data as well. So it's a perfect assistant at the moment, but it's already taking shape. Now we go to another side, ocean transportation, right? So something more from the area of port-to-port transportation, and also what we cover in ShipNext. So you see exactly the same processes, right? You collect data on cargo, you collect route information, you collect transportational units. So the process is very similar. The access to data in all of these is different. So, but it's not rocket science anymore to allow a human being or a computer model to get access to enormous amounts of information on cargo restrictions, all the historic data and then probably manuals or something, rules and regulations of transporting cargo, different routes, different transportation units, meaning vessels, their size, hold size, hatch size, and lifting equipment in ports, and finally all the way to now the experience from previous transportation, and the possibility to check obvious restrictions on road. This is still the one of the things that differentiates a person from an AI. And again, the fact that meteorological data is in real time, it's also quite important for something that a person cannot always really pay attention to in real time. And so actually the advantages are quite similar to the slide before. And now when we come to delivery planning, I will not repeat all of those. So imagine delivering different parts from several different locations to one, right? Two more things that are added, and they are in a way same, but a human being can do them, of course, in a much, much slower pace. So collect and track the position of each unit, and combined with meteorological data, combined with the comparison of all different parts. You probably know that because sometimes when you deliver a project from different locations, you know that some parts arrive or should arrive earlier than the other parts. And so that creates enormous pressure on the project, but the decisions are not taken efficiently yet. So you can start shipping one unit and the other unit is also on its way. And then as delays happen, the recalculation of all the possible new scenarios, all the possible new solutions is not happening anymore at that stage. So there is a lot of stress, there is a lot of emotions, but eventually there is no recalculation. And in a way, everybody is losing from this process as well. Now, what are the use cases today of AI? And I, would like to remind you again that we are talking, pure practical things. So all of these, most of these, except the last one, we have already covered in our product in ShipNext, but we are not the only one. So just to give you a little side note, sorry for the noise. So, I've been talking to companies, for example, in other sectors, and one of them is LVMH. You probably know this huge fashion holding. They, during COVID, they started this transition, and today their manager, when they're talking to a client online, and they have a complete new division for managers that work with their top clients online. Sorry again for the noise. They look at the screen, and their aim was to make sure that as their customer speaks, the system collects all the necessary internal data, market data, pricing, and by the time the client stops asking a question, the manager already has an answer in front of his eyes, so that he doesn't move his eyes left, right, and center, because they had these 4 screens before, and when connecting to a customer, of course, the manager was always looking at all these screens, and it was very distracting. Now their aim was to make sure it wasn't to replace a manager, but to make sure that he's focused on talking to the customer, and the speed at which the data is then available back. So there is one case, which is a text recognition. This is a pure first step of real practical use of AI. And again, for those who join late, and you just to remind you that you should always think of it this way. Is it one of these cases, or is just a pure algorithm? Because algorithm, just using the data from different databases and then automating that, it's not AI. It's not an AI, and it's just basically using a buzzword and tricking you into believing that there are decisions made. There are no decisions made. It's just a pattern of combining different databases, and that's not a use case of AI. AI is when you have a randomly written text and the algorithm understands this text. And that's, or text written or text pronounced, which is more difficult, is one first use case of AI. And that speed and accuracy of recognizing text has enormously increased. Once you start putting it into proper words or even sentences, you also saw that when the algorithm helps you, or that's actually more of a use case of an AI, or help you complete the sentence based on how you usually write emails. That's important too. So it kind of learns on how you usually end up sentences, and it helps you complete a sentence as you write. And you will see it on Google Mail or any other solutions like that, where Google helps you complete a sentence or helps you complete the word or corrects your mistakes as you write. So suggests you another. So this is what it does retroactively. So when you are speaking, it puts it in the right text with correcting all the errors and then taking a decision on basis of that text. And this is that use case which we introduced in ShipNext when you send an email and a user of ShipNext immediately gets your email in a very properly structured form. And on basis of this structured information, the cargo data is instantly matched to the best ship, and the best shipping solution is, or the best ship in position, or ship is matched to the best cargo in position. So this is our practical use case, and this is what we patented before we started ShipNext. So the other use case is client relationship management. So imagine you've done step one, you have a solution that reads your emails. Finally, your brokers don't have to, or can rely on a system that collects the important data, can maybe tag. So at this point, several solutions, and also, by the way, we allow the system to tag an email. So imagine you're receiving 10,000 or 1,000 or 200 emails a day. You don't need to read all of them because a system tags those that you need to pay attention to automatically. And that's also a question of less than fractions of a second. So it reads the text, it understands the text, and it tags you where you need to pay attention, and it tags your colleague just because this is, for example, a cargo, and this cargo is handled by that division. And if this is a position or somebody asking you for a question to connect you to the operational department, it's done automatically, and you don't have to forward that message to your operational department. So that's then the next step is the client relationship management. So imagine that second use case also available on ShipNext. It's a case where every single new contact that you write to, or every single old contact that you write to, is linked to the contact book. So it's part of text recognition. It recognizes the signature, the text in that signature, and it matches by different criteria, also by email. But for example, if it's a email sent from a private one, there are also ways of recognizing whether this is the same contact and adding or matching the two contacts together. It's part of the CRM. So that then one of the use cases is properly keeping all the contacts. It's not a question of Excel sheets anymore, or personal address books, but it's a proper way of structuring contacts in an organization and making sure you see who was the last to contact this client, how many inquiries this client sent you, how many were attended, how many were not attended, how many turned into a contract, and what is the total turnover. So all of those further steps are more of an algorithm, not AI. But again, the use case here is that the structure of the data that an AI captures is slightly different. It's part of the signature of the client. So emails in particular, or for example, facial recognition, if it's a video conference. So matching a face of a caller to that particular person. That's also a part of AI. Now, automation in data search, right? So here again, part of text recognition, but partly there is more data collected, and one of the practical examples is, as I said, ChatGPT. It not only has a growing number of growing access to different data points, but it also learns on the different cases that it reads, visuals, for example, imagery, videos that you put into it, and then it helps search the data much faster, and that's what I think is also a very important use case of this is. And one of this is probably the last step towards behavioral learning, and that is because they at some point they saw that if you ask a computer or an AI to learn how to play chess or play soccer, and you don't tell them how to do that, in several hours or several days, they saw, okay, I'm talking now of experiments that were done 2 or 3 years ago, but nevertheless, now it's of course faster. Now the AI already knows how to do this. But in the beginning, they just asked an AI to learn how to play soccer, for example. And what they've discovered is that it went through all the videos available on all possible online storages. It saw all the combinations that led to a goal. It excluded all the combinations that ended up in a fall or an error, and then it started copying that model of actual playing soccer to gain success. Same thing with chess. So it's looked through all the videos, all the possible recordings, and it learned how to play chess. And that's not, so it's a process totally different from putting in all the rules and teaching it how to play. It's just it's learning the behavior of people to understand how to do it, how do people do it. And this is very important. This is actually, if you go to practical level, it's even simpler in our business today, in your business, in shipping and transportation, and the usual business communication. Because if I ask you, for example, Alessio, can you help me ship this cargo? Alessio, for example, would look at all the details he received in my inquiry, and if there are things that are absent, he will come back and say, please let me know these missing points. Once he has collected all that information, he will say, okay, give me an hour, I'll revert tomorrow. And then, because he knows already all the terms and conditions that he generally offers based on the cargo, based on the routing, which is not anymore a problem to collect, and it's already there, he needs to come up with pricing. Now, pricing is also actually, many companies think that pricing is also a question of, very significantly or scientific calculations, but actually they are not. So we did that for actually for on basis of ship next week. We provide an instant freight index, and this is because also not only do I teach still sometimes people in shipping and chartering, just as a way of practicing and shortening the pattern from an absolutely unexperienced person in shipping to an experienced broker. I learned that this process is actually becoming much, much shorter, and the access of and automation of data search as one, and the email processing, extracting data as the other, is making it even simpler. And therefore, at some point, we saw that the freight rates have not changed historically much, except for those high peaks and very low markets. But for the rest, they have actually stayed more or less same. And that means that the freights are not driven in many cases by what you think it has to be, but by the market. And also then the market is very simple to track, and there is a way to calculate that into a formula. So we've done that for port-to-port freight. This algorithm is quite simple if you really put it into a calculation. So, but the other part of the more complex communication is actually learning the behavior of a broker. And if you go back to what I said earlier, it's quite easy. If you look at your communication or any one of your managers' communication with a customer, it's very simple. What is the freight idea? Oh, I have no freight idea. Okay, well, then you offer, and then if he goes for it or if he is interested, at that moment you can already lay it over to a manager to take care of all the rest. But these chats, AI-driven chatbots are appearing everywhere, and this is probably the next best use case of a AI today. Today, by the way, they can even copy and mimic people's reactions. So, for example, if you call a larger company today and you speak to an operator, it can even change voice from a woman's voice to a man's voice, depending on who is calling. But it does even mimic like, let me see, I will need a second to check your profile. I mean, usually a usual automated machine would not come up with that. But nowadays, because these are AI-driven things, they kind of understand at which psychological level you are. And speaking of psychological levels, one more use case, again, it's I would say it's an interesting one because it's totally new, are these meditation apps. And so they copy your current condition, and they're trained to understand how they should react to you. I mean, are you stressed? Are you being lazy and tired? And kind of change their way of communicating with the user based on that. So these are all at least most of the useful in our industry, in shipping and transportation. Now, what are the takeaways? Yeah, so where to start and what to do? Yeah, what to get prepared. So definitely AI requires teaching. Many companies do that. We do that. Here, you should understand: are you capable of really doing it yourself, or usually use a product? For smaller companies, using an available product is much easier. Or if you're talking about storing and learning on basis of information of your company, if you are on this call, if you are all the CEOs, you should understand that the data you collect historically, like imagine all the data that all the projects that you have had before were properly recorded and stored. This knowledge base, this information would be amazing. The problem is that it was never done that accurate or not complete enough. So a lot of the experience and data is lost. So I've seen a company in Switzerland where a director of transportation department of a large commodity trading firm says, Alexander, here I am the king of transportation. I have been here 40 years. I decide what to use and what not to use, and I take all the decisions. And I said to the director, I said, well, that's a perfect threat to your organization, because the guy has been there 40 years. he probably did, you know, he keeps it all in his head because there's, as you said, no way you're recording this. And eventually, if he doesn't come in tomorrow, all this knowledge is gone. All the experiences was, you know, that was with him is gone. You're not training a new manager. You don't record this information on basis of that knowledge base. So learning and recording and then teaching a system, or if you're using an collecting that information is very super important. Just collecting the information is already important. All the contracts, all the terms should be properly recorded, not on paper, but hopefully electronically. And that will prevent you as company owners to lose the experience and the knowledge base of your company. So as I already said, you should remember that an AI is just there to help. It's to share its experience, its opinion, to suggest, but it cannot go or do or delegate or smell or see at the moment. So it's not something that will replace you. And so your managers, when you, as a boss, you come in and say, look, guys, we are going to implement AI. The first thing you have to tell them, it's not going to replace you. It's just going to help. And I can share with you how we use AI to really boost the efficiency of each and every chartering manager today, and that's also fascinating. You know, their ability to migrate from one sector to another. Today they do coastal trade, coastal shipping. Tomorrow they go and find the Panamax ship. It's just amazing. How is it done? It's just because it's all automated down to a second. The process, and for those of you who probably don't know, so the process of receiving an inquiry from you guys, if I'm a Shipnext user by email and making all the calculations. So for example, it's a project cargo with a heavy unit of 200 metric tons, and then 30 meters long. You mentioning that it should go on the deck and be at the destination by a certain date, to the platform collecting that data properly, calculating, finding one of those 87,000 ships available which matches these dates, is a question of 1 or 2 seconds today. You should not, like before, like in the 90s or the early century, run around asking people, where's that ship? All those stories with Tobena, or, you know, to be nominated, whatever versions of that were, or fake names, you know. There was even one called In Good Faith, motor vessel Good Faith or something. You know, all those cases are gone because finding a ship is just a question of 1 or 2 seconds, matching an incoming inquiry to a ship, or even a door-to-door transportation cost is now a question of a second. So you probably know that CMA CGM has, as one of them, you know, MSC, CMA CGM, they have online rates, and they are available not only for you know, for a particular slot on a particular ship, which is the first case we are integrating on Shipnext, but they also have door-to-door rates. Well, if they have a door-to-door rate, the only thing that separates them from giving this freight instantly or controlling this rate is the speed at which they process the incoming inquiry, which is today, as I said, a question of a second, and knowing the volatility. So the volatility is more what we are now working on, which is predictive analytics. But every larger company, they also learn, okay, what are the imbalances of trade, how many more, you know, how much more demand do we have in a certain location versus the available space. This has been there since the Uberization of car transport taxi, and it's easy to do in international cargo transportation as well. So it's also available. So matching those two, that's an easy task. Then, yeah, so important, as I said, to collect and store the data. If you are, in some cases, you know, there's just creating a digital twin is very important. So if you have For example, well, it has been done in road transportation, creating a digital twin of a driver. So if a driver is tired, the car can continue driving. It's because they collected enough information and they know what to do. Now, so the best closest use case of AI in shipping and transportation that will come out, and this is coming from the last practical case here on this page, is behavioral learning, is a co-pilot. So for example, you have an organization, you have 2 managers or 3 managers, and you want to grow that to an international company. You need to scale your business model. How do you scale your business model? You have to teach, and this is now a question of actually $2,000. You train a co-pilot, literally. So to train your own AI based on your own company data today is a question of $2,500 or euro, as you like, to teach your website, which by the way, in most of your company's case or all of your company's case, believe me, is hardly ever visited. So but it could be more practical, so it's visited more. For example, I was really shocked to learn that 80+% of all the business of CMA CGM or all the cargo is booked without intervention of people. And because they have all these rates online, you go onto their website and you can book a cargo on their website without any intervention of human beings. I mean, when I said this in 2016, everybody thought I was crazy. Now it's a reality. And cargo to ship matching is actually working for container trade as well. It also works for door-to-door transportation. It's more complex, but nevertheless, the website is working. So in your company's case, one of the interesting use case that you can take away, or takeaways that you can get out of this, is to really develop an AI-driven chatbot that gets your customer to a certain point of time when then it's passed to you or to your manager. This way you enormously scale your sales managers, you can actually do sales. It's also easy to automate. That's not AI, that's pure automation. So pure algorithms to actually look for contacts, and then they are pulled into your chatbot. A chatbot knows how to respond to anything today, but also to shipping inquiries, and then lead the customer to a certain point where either you give a price, or in the case of CMA CGM, for example, their database releases a price, is one of the most, let's say, potentially bigger use cases in shipping and transportation. Yeah, so eventually, well, the last takeaway is just, guys, please record or preserve the information. You will need it one way or another if you really want to take your company further, and not, let's say, go down to, because imagine hiring managers today in a company that doesn't even have internet, right? You can't imagine people coming in using faxes, right? Or typing machines. So everybody went to computer. Imagine a company that has no access to email, right? We've passed that. So younger managers, they want better technology. So because the younger you are today, the more it's common to say that the young population generation is lazy. Yes, they are lazy because of all this available technology, and that's one of the important steps in order to keep your business running, attractive to younger generation, and less. Because actually, I also ask many people, like your children, will they also join shipping and transportation? And 99 of them say no, they will not, because it's too stressful. The only reason why it's too stressful is because it's 24/7. There's a lot of emails. You have to know a lot of data. You have to keep it in your head, and it's a daily routine. Well, it shouldn't be anymore, right? So a lot of it is automated. A lot of it is now handled automatically, and AI is a very big part of this journey. So please ask your questions. I hope you have access to microphones. Feel free to ask me anything, or contact me.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexander. I didn't have the chance to welcome you officially at the beginning, so I'll do it backwards. Thank you so much for joining us today and all the beautiful information you shared with us. I really like the last comment that AI will bring like the paradise in logistics where deadlines and data and problems will not disappear, but somehow will get less. Of course, anybody who would like to ask anything, feel free. I have a few written down because you gave a lot of information that I would like not to question, but just to take it like a step further. So if I understand it right, the algorithm, the difference is that between the algorithm and AI is that AI can actually suggest a decision making,
Yes.
right? To put it in
Yeah.
a short way, that's the
Yeah.
big difference there. But when it comes to humans, aren't there always specific, not specific, but unpredicted parameters that can influence the final result? Meaning, I will give just, oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I need 2 minutes and somebody else can take it over. 2 minutes, just please.
Yeah, so I kind of got the question. So the first question was if it's unpredicted. Well, if it's if it's unpredictable, then well, yeah.
To help you, I will give an example of today, for example. So we were doing some loads, quite tricky, quite difficult ones. And I'm using a specific provider who I can count on and that he will deliver this and this and that. And I know from past experience that he also works Saturdays, right? So I can plan my work around that. And I can release tracks earlier and we can all go home earlier if Saturday is in the schedule. So I make all my plans, inform all the people, give my orders, everything is set. And then finally he gives me a phone call, say, Elizabeth, I can't work this Saturday because it's my granddaughter's birthday and I can't miss it. So suddenly the entire plan collapses. And for example, this kind of information that can just step in with no previous, hint or something, and suddenly the whole thing falls apart.
Sorry, but what collapses? I didn't understand.
The entire plan. I mean, my entire
Because of Saturday.
plan falls out, and I need to restructure everything from start, and maybe have delays or engage more people or add the extra costs. A lot of different things can happen from now on.
Yeah, but a lot of the, if I understand it, so you to solve this, you say, okay, it's past experience, but past experience is in many cases recorded data. Okay, past experience that they work on Saturday. That's not, difficult to, for an AI, for, any GPT model to extract that data. It's available somewhere. So it has been somewhere written, somewhere known. Maybe the exchange of data from their server to was more active, so the communication level was more active on a Saturday. The computer would know, or an AI, sorry, would know that they work on Saturday, and so just sorry, maybe there are other factors that you said were based on experience, but a lot of the experience is recorded. You see what I mean, right? And
Yeah,
if
the past
and if you
experience
yeah, and
shows
if you
that we can count on that, and suddenly that's not on the table anymore. So the computer doesn't know that, but the human does.
Okay, and I'm saying that a lot of this experience is okay, you could look. So for example, experience is still very important, and I say that it's super important to have experience. But a lot of companies, they record that experience. You are talking this information now, and if you turn on, and remember, I remember this is this now power struggle between not even companies, but between countries, right? Like USA, Europe, China. And if you look, there is only a fraction of these companies like Google, Meta, which are two rivals, but they compete, and there is a lot of interaction too. And Microsoft, right? That compete around their AI. So I am now talking on Zoom. I don't know if Zoom is owned by Google or anyone, but for example, Teams is owned, and Teams can not only read and process and record everything. I talk on Teams meetings is recorded and it's stored. So, and once I'm having a meeting with you and you're telling me this experience, you just now said it, or if you would say it, it's already recorded and it's already available to the AI. You understand? So that recording of data and experience happens when you talk on the phone, when you write an email, when you talk to on a video meeting, all that is there already.
All that is information. Yeah.
And remind me, I told you about your phone. I mean, I think the biggest challenge for a forwarder today is to find the best route, and because they judge on their past experience, but there is access to much more information that companies have. You can call that experience because it's collected from billions of telephones, right? All the vibration, all the speed at which it travels, all the turns it made, plus in addition to the car you're driving, or both actually. So if you drive a Tesla, it records both at the same time. So that information is already available. Now, okay, maybe there is no solution like ChatGPT that you ask, okay, here, read my Excel sheet, which it can, or look at this photograph and tell me how best to ship this cargo. It will refer to you. It will tell you that I have no access to shipping data. This is why we didn't give access to ShipNext to ChatGPT, because they are very aggressive, and we don't want ChatGPT to replace all the forwarders, for example, or all the shipping brokers. I think the first replaceable, replaceable. I mean, as long as you are replacing, for example, your travel agent with Booking.com, some would probably replace a broker or a bad broker with a automated ChatGPT model at some point. But of course, you need experience and you want interaction with human beings. This is why you decide whether you want to go with a model or with a human being. But there are, just like there are more users using Booking.com, there will be users using ChatGPT at some point in time, or call it ShipNext AI, for example, right? And we understand that, at that moment, even my shipping company, Varamar, will struggle because, look, Varamar is there, for example, as long as people don't see things, right? So, or combine less experience, in a less experienced fashion, or they don't find that ship instantly, and so it's a challenge. But that this is why I created ShipNext, because it's challenging to my own company, to my own managers. And when I told them, guys, what the hell are you doing reading those emails? I will make sure that you are not reading emails anymore. They thought I was crazy, and they say, look, yeah, but the experience. But again, most of that experience is just access to data, real-time data or static data. But if you ask me and another person to now read an email from a client and come up with a solution, if I don't have access to all that data, it will take me days. Days of work on really calling the agent, finding draft restrictions, calling many brokers, asking them to find a ship, and then calculating all that, finding the costs. If you can automate that, is it experience or is it just access to data? You see what I mean, right? So
Yeah, I see what
in
you.
many
Of course,
cases,
the more digital, of course, the world, goes forward, not backward, but the more digital, the more dependent on software updates, on IT people,
that's
and
true.
more vulnerable we become, right? I mean,
That's true.
so that's also something to take
But
into
remember here, more data, it's proven, less efficiency from a human being, right? So, at the end, I mean, we can, of course, just focus on something and say we are professional in this because we know the look and feel and so on. But when you are in shipping and transportation and you need to know all the 105 countries that have access to the sea and to find the best route, am I going to deliver my cargo to the middle of Saudi Arabia through the Red Sea, or through Dammam, or through Jebel Ali, or or fly it there? There's a lot of data involved, and doing it without that data, automated, for example, to some point is, just finding that data manually is already a long task.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned something earlier about email processing and about email tagging and automated
Yeah.
procedures that will save a lot of time, etc. Are there any hidden risks there?
Well, and I can demonstrate if you like, actually, just to show you how it's done real time, if you allow me.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
have the time.
Yeah, sure. So let me stop share and then I will share the other screen.
And anyone, please, if you want to switch on your microphone and join any question or something.
Yeah, so here, here you have the use case that I can share, right? So just to show you the real-time flow of all the emails. So here you see I can even like select only the types of emails that we receive. Let me, so it's switching on. Yeah, so every new email is tagged automatically. So you see, it's like it's a real-time flow. So every new email as it comes, what is it now? 1506. The minute it comes in, it's tagged automatically. There is no, I don't see any risks there because this is just basic teaching. This is not the putting of tags is just an algorithm. It's not AI. The AI can understand if this cargo is an inquiry or a vessel's position, for example, or an order or a bill of lading or a recap, because it understands the text. But what to do with that email and whom to share it with, it's not AI. It's just an algorithm. So you say, okay, all the recaps, tag it with, the name of Rebecca, for example. All the cargoes that go from North Europe to South America, tag it for Nicholas. And then that's a basic formula. So it's not difficult. You see, so then you have an email which is tagged with all these tags, and when people share, now that's a transition. So many of you use folders. We feel that folders is not the best way. You would usually say, okay, I only want my tags or emails with no tags, so that I can help maybe my other colleagues, because there are random emails that are not, part of that algorithm where I say, okay, an invite we receive as a company to somebody's dinner. Who should it be for? Should it be for, for a particular colleague, or should it be for our secretary, or for everyone to see? So it's, for example, some news, right? Also easy to capture and mark that this is a news article, and then put it into somebody's folder. But what I could do is just then do it manually, for example, and that's it, right? So or name, yeah, Alexander, for example. So you can then create as many tags as you like, but this is not AI. This is just algorithm. The AI is taking an email, understanding it, and instantly processing. That's an AI. And you see here the email is received. Just to show you an example, right? This is a new inquiry. No, wait, this is an old inquiry. Let's say this one. It's just received less than 2 minutes ago. It's already tagged. So all these managers know it's a, and then what you do with it is, you instantly match it to the vessels in position. So this process took days before, now, regardless of where you are a broker with dealing with project cargo or small parcels on coaster trades like here, Turkey, Russia, or you are working with Panamax or even Cape shipments. It's not difficult to match it to cargo. And maybe let me show you a more fascinating. For example, here, Ukraine to Taranto, right? Now here, in some cases, there are only 2 ships or 1 ship. And imagine receiving an inquiry from your customer, and in less than 10 seconds already finding, you see, like 10 ships, or here in this case, 8 ships that are best matching it. I mean, you're faster than any broker in the world, so why would you not use it, right? So that's these are all the use cases with recognition of the text. The minute you use AI to recognize, and here we use our own machine learning algorithm that we developed for 8 years, and we also connected it to a GPT model. So, for example, for GPT helps us. It's not ChatGPT. I repeat, it's another GPT. It helps us keep all the contacts. So for some, that's already an internal process. It extracted emails, but they have not yet been categorized. But nevertheless, all the rest, they are properly structured, extracted. You can see who communicated with whom previously, and it's linked to all the emails with that customer. If he was, and of course there is an archive and all that. So nevertheless, it's yeah. So you can go into archive to see the previous ones, but nevertheless, it's you can track as part of the CRM process all this, and even if you work in a larger organization and the algorithm processes your emails, imagine how handy it is. For example, you're traveling and somebody sent you an inquiry and you're traveling. What happened before? You needed to set up an automatic reply saying, okay, I am traveling, so don't contact me or contact another manager. Well, right now, what happens in for example, in Varamar, and I only speak about them because I'm not really into daily use cases of other companies around ShipNext, but it's extracted from private email and it's put into the folder of all the other managers that deal with this market, for example. And that's what is done with the help of AI. So you don't need to bother or worry that when you receive an inquiry that your other managers will not see that inquiry. It's done automatically. And it spares you from all that time you usually lose reading this email and then sending it to that other manager and then even texting him, hey, please don't forget to respond, because all the rest of the work can then be automated. Sorry, please interrupt me if you have questions, because everybody
there is a question there, but maybe somebody would like to speak.
One question
Yeah,
from me. Oh, Don, sorry.
There is a question from Nilesh, I see.
Yes. Let us first give the word to Dawn, and then I will go.
Yeah,
sure.
Alexander, when a company would download their emails and assemble their own database, who is the ultimate owner of that? The company, the database keeper, or ShipNext?
If you talk about ShipNext, so we are a partner of Microsoft, and our product itself is on Microsoft Cloud. So we are not storing anything on our server. So the ultimate keeper of your data is unfortunately Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and all those huge corporations. Even our full of product is on their server. So in a way, we can only trust how well they preserve our data eventually.
So then,
if you're talking about practical things, like of course, look, for me or any company, like you can talk about Booking.com. Are they not leaking your information to your competitors, for example, where you travel or whom you meet, or Uber? Of course, nobody's going to jeopardize their project over somebody's cargo or one cargo, because the risk of losing millions invested and time invested over somebody's cargo that eventually can end up in a loss, or never be shipped, but you finding out that somebody contacted your customer, it's just not worth it. And we and then many other companies, they have processes in place to make sure that your information stays with you. And on another practical level, even in Varamar, I would never read all the emails, for example, that people collect. On ShipNext, we have over 200,000 emails a day. I mean, I have to just drop everything I do, and I would still not be able to, or anybody, for that matter, even read that information, and it's encrypted. So it's just too much to do, so, and again, it would be stupid to abandon a digital project over somebody's cargo, for example. And eventually, all my emails are on Google Cloud and Microsoft Cloud. So who knows who's reading it, frankly speaking. I try to behave well, and that keeps me sleep at night.
for the company, their entire history now is accessible to the algorithm and then ultimately to AI.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if you turn on, here's maybe captions, you will see that everything I pronounce, everything you pronounce is already recorded in a text and it's stored there. So we have to accept this. I mean, we can maybe go back to the old phones and not use it, but we will start being inefficient at some point, right? If we do that. So, and that's why building a scalable model of your company is so important, right? So for me, it was a very huge challenge. I mean, I understood that, look, the more managers I hire, the less efficient they are, because, okay, with 2 managers, we can still capture. So we received, for example, in the beginning, maybe 200 inquiries. And then I saw that of the 200 inquiries, I mean, you cannot expect people to write to 200 clients, sorry, we cannot do this, right? Or they could only capture maybe like 10% or 5% of the inquiries. So that means that 190 customers went back with no response. You see the danger, right? When we grew to 15 managers, I said, no, look, I come into the office, you know what I see? People going through all these emails, 1,000 or 2,000 inquiries per day. And then me as a CEO at that moment, I went to a customer and he says, yeah, but Alexander, we sent you an inquiry. You never responded to that. Okay, we sent you one more. Your managers didn't respond to that. So why would we send it to you again? And I have to be apologetics and tell them, okay, but sorry, maybe there were like too many on that day, and or somebody, or we didn't have a solution, or maybe you sent an inquiry for the market that we didn't carry, or that we didn't handle, or we didn't cover. So all this information from the moment you receive an inquiry can be automated. So for example, you receive it from a key customer. How do you know it's a key customer? Easy, right? That's a CRM case. You receive it. What do you do with it? If it's for John, Jack, Peter, easy. You know, it's all a question of a second. If it's a key customer and the inquiry is not for anybody, it's not tagged, and that's the SOP you develop. But if you do that on a very basic level, you start making your company scalable, your business scalable. Because look, just to give you a comparison to Flexport, remember that company, the forwarding company that raised $3 billion or $2 billion? Amazing, right? You know what they did? They said, okay, we are a digital forwarder. They were not a digital forwarder. They are still not a digital forwarder. They can be a digital forwarder now because they use the information of their customers to build a forwarding platform which is automated for pure purpose of replacing forwarders, actually. So they would have people on the ground. So you can be even a Flexport agent on the ground, but behind there is an algorithm that offers instant freight search. To some extent, I think it's only container and only some routes. But what did they do? Initially, they said, okay, we are a digital forwarder. You would go online. You would have some very, very basic questionnaire with a very, very limited option. And then once you fill it in, it says, we will get back to you in 72 hours. That's not a digital forwarder. You know, any forwarder can do that, you know. But because they announced it and they started doing that, they received funding to make it scalable. And this is what all of you on this call can do. If you come up with, you know, let's say the courage or the initiative to make your company scalable, today you would need to at least try to train a co-pilot. Training a co-pilot, and I'd be happy to connect you to companies that do that, because we are also now adding a chat with a co-pilot. But we are very afraid of this for us, because we are, I think our use case will be very limited, maybe to our manual, because we are, our audience, our users are intermediaries. So we are just a platform, and there is no intention to replace any of the brokers that use Shipnext or any of the forwarders, or, and eventually we are quite careful with that use case. But if you announce that you are a digital forwarder, you need a co-pilot that knows how to give a rate and make it bookable with you, not with CMA CGM or MSC like we do, for example, or any carrier. If any one of you knows how to automate rates, and we already work with a couple of companies that are not in container trade, but they know that their rates are in a database and can be pulled out of a database based on some criteria. it's easy. You know, if you have those rates, give it to ShipNext. All the customers that try to ShipNext, or you know, I think it's very public to say that those companies that even write to my other company, Varamar, but they don't put in writing private and confidential, or do not recirculate, or you know, for Varamar's purposes only, or whatever, is also shared. Because look, I'm tired of customers, let's say, also writing to my managers and, you know, never receiving a response. So I started ShipNext to help here, you know, any one of you to use ShipNext and find the best shipping solution. It could be BBC or Splithof or whoever. My business model is that if they are not clients of Varamar, I would be happy if they are clients of ShipNext, and eventually the, you know, the sales of ShipNext continue rising, irrespective of the fluctuation of the market. So I can only recommend you to you know, all the data, you know, that we collect is all open to you. But eventually, how you deal with the data and experience you collect, whether you can make your rates digital, and we can help you with that, by the way. You know, I digitalize rates for Varamar, and you know, I see how other companies are digitalizing, you know, their understanding of how they quote, what they quote. It's very easy, actually. Today, sea freight is quite standard. You know, that container, you can pull out indexes, you can pull out databases. The rest is your handling fee, documentational fee, maybe lashing, securing. But there we go into different cargo sizes. You know, even there you can have averages. And then when you build those averages and then you put a 5% markup, that's the rate you can try and make bookable. Maybe it's too high, but you know what happens? Many clients, they say, I don't care if it's higher than the market. If it's so easy, I will book it. I can tell you, I spoke to huge companies like, well, I will not tell you the names of companies, but believe me, there are steel traders, which are very commodity driven, and even small companies that cannot afford an internal, we call them brokers, right? An internal broker would be, for example, their logistics manager. They don't have them, but they have only like one container per month to ship. They would go to a platform like that and they would book your rate if it's even not as competitive as they can eventually find. Sorry, I let you ask your questions. I don't want to.
Actually, there is one written there on the chat box.
Yeah, as freight forwarders, we primarily rely on individual teams' experience or some of the family-owned businesses, which often shows resistance to adopting new technologies. What steps should such companies take to create a roadmap for implementing AI and automation? How can we transition from a traditional manual approach to successfully integrating AI and automating in our operation? Well, as I said, you know, you can start by saying, okay, how many inquiries do we receive each day? Let's say 30. Do we help those customers? No. Can we help those customers? How can we help those customers? You know, for example, use a product that processes emails. Do we have a CRM? Like, do we know which companies we work with? Do we know historically all the people that wrote to us? Do we know whether they stopped writing to us or no? These are all customers, you know, maybe today they don't have a cargo for you, but tomorrow they say, well, you never reverted to me, so I will not give you that cargo. How do we work with those? And it's specifically for small companies to manage this process, because a family-owned business can only grow if you learn to either of the two things. And actually, this is what I teach any commercial manager that comes into my business. I teach them, you know, if you want to grow in an organization, there are only two ways to grow. If you're a commercial, you have to focus on the best paying business to be handled within your 8 or 10 hours a day. The business that you feel is less awarding, you have to, you know, teach an apprentice, teach a replacement manager or a team member, and with that team you will grow into a department or maybe an additional company or whatever, you know, depending on the business you finally find. So that's one way. That's for the commercial manager. For an operational manager, the best manager is that automates and scales, therefore, his work. That means in 8 to 10 hours a day, you cannot expect a very clever, experienced operational manager to work 24/7. So he will need to automate his knowledge to create a manual. The minute you create a manual, you already did half of the work. And then you can create a small basic algorithm. If this happens, this has to be done. If that happens, this has to be done. That's another small step towards automating. So a clever manager would be able to automate that. And then the third, of course, you will have to see whether you can spend money to do that yourself. Usually it's not the best case because the market pays more if it's a product made for everyone. And then you have to find a solution that can help you do that. And if you're talking about the final step, today I told you it's the co-pilot. It's an AI model. You have your websites. You have to have a chatbot on your websites. You have to, because then your website starts working for you. How does it start working? It can be a very well or very basic chatbot that has that changes picture depending on who is talking to it, be it a nice girl or a fancy guy, and then answering basic things like, how can I help you? Oh, yeah, I heard about let's say BPG or whatever, DHL. Can you help me ship my cargo? Yes, please. How can I help you ship your, what cargo do you have? And then he starts writing and writing and writing. Then you ask him, can you attach a packing list? And he attaches a packing list. So by then you have all the information, and then you can pull out a rate or connect your manager at that level. You don't have to then expect your experienced chartering or commercial manager to pull out information which is so basic.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, as I said, training a chatbot, and we are slowly, starting this process now is just a couple of €1,000. It's a very, there are so many of these chatbots already existing. It's just basically working with your team to understand what's your use case. What do you want to do with this data? Do you have anything written or stored in your spreadsheets, your data? And then you give it to that team that you choose, and that's it. Nothing fancy.
One of the just to add, one of the challenges we have faced, in executing it, what you discussed and suggested, is the data depository and the time taken for it, because there is a lack of standardization of data. And when we are creating any NLP based algorithm, the biggest challenges comes especially for the large database in terms of type A and type 2 error, which we are facing it in terms of implementing when we are handling the large databases. So far, because of the regulatory issues in India, and second, the complexity of the data. We are still not able to create the very clear roadmap that where to start and where to take it. And and in the process, when we have to estimate the budgeting for this, there also it is not getting clarity on this, is that in what timeline what kind of budget is to be allocated, considering that you are forecasting a X percentage of growth year on year. But yeah, I agree with the point what you said it here, is that this is the ultimate thing. Whether we like or not, we need to adopt it. And we have worked out with your platform also in past. And I realized that when the transactions start taking places, the local operators start getting involved into it. And in some cases, the rate which is being agreed or is being offered or vessel is being proposed, that gets overpowered by the local agent who works at the local market. So I'm sure, I think we have shared such experiences in past also. Yeah.
So our use case of AI is still limited to extraction of email data, helping you automate freight search and CRM. If you have your own in-house data, because look, for me the challenge is, and even there my knowledge is still quite incomplete, is and I want to avoid this, of course, because even, you know, all the Varamar's data is on ShipNext and eventually on Microsoft and Amazon clouds and our customers too. I am afraid to allow any GPT model to have access to that, because you have to try this yourself with ChatGPT. You can talk it into something. And I think that that's what they were also afraid of in ChatGPT, is that if you talk to it long enough and you talk it into leaking some information, that's dangerous, you know. And I don't want to allow a chatbot, an AI-driven chatbot, for that purpose only. So we are going to train our model, and we are also going to spend 2,500 euro on this, because it's going to be a very limited use case, and it's going to be our model for our limited use case, so that when you go online, it greets you and says, "Hello, Nilesh, what can I help you with?" And then you say, "Look, how do I use this? And what do I press? And, you know, can we schedule a call, or I need help?" Or you say, "Look, I want to ship my cargo. What do I do?" And so it's a very limited use case, and it's basically a manual connected to the you know, question and answers that you are facing, and then what the AI of there does, it reads your question and it understands which is the which is the question that you are actually asking. Because what happened in the past is that you were expected to write 1,000 versions of each question, so that in case it, you know, it is asked, it's exactly that way, then you get an answer. Well, with AI, it's not necessary anymore, because it makes its own logical interpretation of the question and matches it to the other similar question.
Great. I
True.
think we
Thanks.
shared very, very interesting things today. Thank you so much for your time, Alexander. You've given
You're
us
welcome.
much more than we initially expected. Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Marianne, for setting this up, for having the idea, and for helping THLG community learn more. Now, if I may ask the majority, the ones who have access to, please switch on your cameras so that we can have a nice picture to promote THLG.
What if somebody's in the bathroom?
Pardon?
What if somebody's in the bathroom or in the hotel,
Yeah,
you know?
so that's why I say whoever has the access to it.
Yeah,
Some
yeah, yeah.
people don't have cameras in their computers, so some of them will be switched
Oh,
on.
I tell you, while everybody's switching on the camera, I will tell you a funny story. It was, you know, the beginning of these Zoom conversations, and it was like even probably before COVID. And I had a meeting with one of the venture firms. And, you know, when you present, you don't see yourself, or at least that moment, you didn't see yourself. And I thought, okay, they probably do, you know, they don't see me, so I'll bite something, I'll eat something. And, you know, eventually after a year, I recalled the story, and I said to myself, well, they probably saw me like eating and so on. It was so funny, right?
Okay, so Andreas, will you please take a
Yes,
few? And then I
of
think
course.
we need also to go to the next page, because we have a lot of people joining.
Yes, I know,
Okay.
I know, I know.
Hi, Sanjina.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Is everyone ready for the first photo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Happy
Okay.
face.
All
Great.
right.
And then
Okay,
we move
first
to the
one
next
is
page,
ready.
please. We have a lot of participants today.
Give me 1 second to just save the first one. Let's go now to the second one. Okay, everybody smile.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alexander. It has been
Thank
an
you.
honor to have you. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye everybody.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Thank you.